Hello, I'm Bill Cecil, and welcome to episode number 19 of my podcast series, Best Year Ever or Bust. The podcast series designed to help uplift, motivate, and empower you to make every year as a teacher your best year ever by helping you to help your students make it their best year ever as well, despite any and all challenges you encounter throughout the school year. Hopefully by now, you and your students have adopted the 100% all-in mindset. Best year ever or bust, baby! And you're not letting anyone or anything stop you or your team from making it happen. As always, number one, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy life to listen to this episode. And more importantly, number two, I want to thank you for being the hero you've been called to be, striving to make a positive difference in your students' life each and every day in your classroom. And number three, I want to give a special thank you to all of you that are taking time to share this podcast series with other teachers and teachers in training. You know, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. By the way, I do have one quick favor to ask you. If someone took the time to introduce you to this podcast series and you feel it's having a positive effect in your classroom this year, please find some time this week to thank them for sharing this with you, because remember, it takes a healthy village to raise healthy children as well as teens and young adults as well. What a great segue into today's episode. In today's episode, I want to finish our 4-part mini-series on how and why it's so important and such a great investment of your time to get your students' parents more involved throughout the school year and to keep them involved, to help build this bridge of support between home and school that will help your students have their best year ever. Remember, research shows that when we can get our parents involved in our schools and keep them involved, that their children, our students, have better attendance and behavior, that they tend to develop better social skills. It will help them to adapt easier to school and to help them get better grades. And my favorite, it will help them develop a lifelong love of learning, which is key to helping them experience lifelong success. Which isn't that the shared goal teachers and parents want to have in common? To have our children, our students have experienced lifelong success? So why not team up and make this a shared vision or mission between us each school year? That's what I've been talking about in these last 3 episodes and what I want to talk more about today. That's why I'm telling you why this is important and providing you with strategies and ideas or activities that you can use to make it happen. So to get started, you may recall that the last strategy I shared in episode 18, I encouraged you to send home a volunteer help wanted survey to your students' parents, asking them to put a check next to any of the several upcoming activities or events that they'd be interested in volunteering for throughout the school year. So today, I'd like to briefly run through each activity or event that you put on that volunteer survey sheet that I mentioned. If you think about it, each one of the events that you put on that sheet would be another strategy or opportunity to get your parents to come in. So I'm going to be giving you not just one strategy, but I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 or 4 more strategies that you could use, because these would be the events that you had put on that survey. So let's start with the first one that I would put on my survey. I would say, by the way, we'll call this strategy number 7. Invite your students' parents to be a guest reader to your students. This would be another opportunity or a strategy for you to get your parents to come in to get more involved, okay? And this would be the first one probably on that parent survey that I would send home. This is a really, really cool strategy, because what it is it takes little prep time, and it helps you to help reinforce the importance of reading to your students as well as, or to your children, because the parents would see how important this is. But it's also a great opportunity to promote some of your success strategies related to the best year ever theme. So what you would do is you would get a list of picture books in your mind that would cover some of the important themes of best year ever. For example, like a picture book that might have to do with teamwork, where you need others to succeed in life. Or maybe one of the books would have to do with attendance. You have to show up to be successful. Or one of the themes in the books would be attitude, positive can-do attitude, or believe you can achieve, or effort. You got to try. You got to come in and work hard to get what you want in life. It's not just going to be lucky or have it handed to you. You got to go out and make it happen, right? Perseverance, not to give up if you don't get it right away. That'd be another great. There's a lot of picture books that have these themes. Or how about setting goals to work to achieve them? Look for ways to help others on your team or to care for others. There's tons of picture books about that. Growth mindsets, which means that you can actually go out and work for something. You don't just have to be born with a certain talent. Either you get lucky in life or you don't, but that you can actually learn to, accomplish things with effort and by sticking with it long enough. Learning from your mistakes, right? That's a big part of effort in my classroom. It's okay to make mistakes. I encourage you to make mistakes. Don't try to be perfect, but you got to learn from your mistakes. We talked about that with Edison. You'll see that theme also in these books. So there's lots and lots of these themes that you can go out and start collecting, sort of a list that you could give parents an option to pick one, or let the parents pick a book. Maybe they have one that they remember reading to their kid, or they remember as a child. Believe it or not, I still remember some of my favorite picture books when I was growing up. So the point is, give them a list of books to choose from if they decide when the time comes and you send home a note saying, hey, I'd love to have you interested. These are some things to think about you would include in the note home. Like, I have a list of books you could choose from, or you could tell me a book you're interested in. And I would have them tell you what book they are going to be bringing in, if they're going to bring it in, so you could just sort of check it out yourself to make sure it's appropriate and also that it does fit in the theme. You don't have to tell them that, but I think it's important just for your own safety, because what goes on in your classroom you're responsible for. But that's one of the things you tell them in that note home when the time came to see if anybody was really interested, of the ones that checked it off in the box, if they really were still interested in coming in. Also on that note, I would provide parents with a possible list of dates that you might be available to do this. For example, I would do it on Fridays during reading month. And so I'd have one parent come in the afternoon right after lunch and maybe read the first 15 minutes from one of the picture books. And so they could sign up for one of those slots. So I'd send home available slots. And then, the first one, first come, first serve. If they say they're interested, then we'd let them know that that slot was already taken, but I still have these slots available. If you don't want to do it during reading month, you could do it throughout the entire school year if you want it, maybe but once a month or once or twice a month on a Friday. Or I'm saying Friday because usually Fridays are wrap up. It's fun for the kids, something they can look forward to at the end of the week. You can talk it up all week long. But it could be right after lunch again, or a time when you have 15 minutes to spare that they could come in and read to your kids. So let them know, when the time period's going to be. But I thought those would be two good time periods during reading month or throughout the year, maybe once or twice. You could also encourage them to practice reading the picture book before they come in. Sometimes they come in and they're a little bit nervous because all of a sudden they're standing. It's not like reading to their kid in bed at night or when they were a kid, sitting at a table reading together. No, they're in front of a large group, so it might throw them. So I would encourage them, practice it a few times out loud, reading slow with expression, and finding places where you can actually hold up the book. Like if you can read while holding it up so the kids can see the pictures, that's great. If not, you can read it with the book towards you and then stop between each page and show them the picture, walk around facing it out to them so they get a chance to see it. But also think about things that you might want to stop while you're showing it to them, the pictures, and saying, hey, can anybody tell me what they're doing in this picture or in this page that reminds you of your best year ever coin, or something like that. Things they could say to them, questions that they think of, or let them know that you might even jump in once in a while with a question and say, hey kids, before we continue on with this, what can you tell me in this picture that shows you that people are working together? Or what was said in this page that shows that people are working together, which is what I'm asking you to do in here a lot. Things like that, so that they have something to focus on. I would tell parents, too, the more they practice, the more relaxed they're going to be. So that's really, really important. And if they need to come and get the book ahead of time, please give them permission to do that. Let them know that's not a problem. You'll send it home with their kid if you want to. They can come in, you can talk about it more if that would make them feel more comfortable. But the key is definitely to make them feel comfortable and excited about this. This is a really fun activity for parents. They love it because they get to come in and feel a part of your team. They see that the kids really love it, and that's a win for the kids because they do really love it, having somebody other than you always reading to them. It's a guest, and they get excited about that. And it's definitely a win for you because it helps to put another positive in that bank account of letting parents know you are a valued member of this team, and I want you to be a part of that. So that would be that strategy. Another thing that I would have on my parent survey, one of the activities I would list is that, and this is a really cool one. It's a little bit more detailed, but it's success stories for people that you know. In my book, on pages 212 to 215, I have something called Success Stories, and I break it down into where people come in off the street that I've invited. They don't just wander in and start talking to my kid. That would be kind of creepy. But seriously, I call it Success Stories, and I break it into two groups. Success stories of the rich and famous, which means these would be people that I would be talking to them about throughout the year, like Thomas Edison or Michael Jordan or other, Rosa Parks and all these different people. I would come in and talk about them and why I thought they were successful and why I thought their stories were worth sharing because it related to our Best Year Ever theme in some way. But what I like to also do is invite people in. And so there's a part that's in my book that I call Success Stories from the People Next Door, which means people in your own community, which could even be you, because even though you're in the same house with your child, but you might be next door to some of the other kids. And so this is the part I'm talking about, success stories of the people next door. And why I do that is because I want them to know that it's not just lucky people, lucky few. Only the famous people seem to be the ones that got lucky and were successful. I want them to know that success is everywhere around them. They're surrounded by success, even in their own home. Sometimes they take you for granted that's just mom or dad or whoever. No, but you have a story to tell that's really impressive. And it doesn't have to be some, Stop the Presses movie of the week type story. It can be just an example from your life where you're proud of something that you accomplished by putting forth extra effort or having the right attitude or being willing to learn from a mistake or sticking with something when everybody else told you couldn't do it, but you found a way to do it. For me, I think I've shared it a few times, I'm sure by now, is that I talk about when I played college soccer and my coach, basically I in high school didn't think I could play Division I soccer, and I wanted to prove that coach wrong and show that I could do it. And so that was my story that I shared about how I went in and worked extra hard to make that team. That's my success story that I would share with the students and tell them, don't let people tell you what you can or can't do. Only you know what's in your heart and what you're willing to work for. So these would be great stories, and I loved when parents would come in. And so if you were a teacher that invited parents to come in and do this, all you would do is just sort of send home a note again like you did for the reading book, that they would come in the picture book that they would read and list some of the same strategies and say, or some of the same themes that they might want to talk about. Teamwork, the 3 words on the Best Year Ever coin, the success formula, working well with others, not giving up, perseverance, something in your life where you accomplished something that you're proud of, that you could come in and share it in a 15 to 20 minute presentation. It could even be shorter than that. It could be 10 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with, 5 minutes. I wouldn't make it a 30-second story. That'd be kind of weird. They wouldn't get comfortable in their seats, But seriously, come in and just share a short story. And you don't have to memorize it. Just tell it like a story. You're the main character in this story. It has a conflict. It's something that's holding you back, but you found a way to overcome that challenge, which is what this whole podcast series is about. So it's good for parents their kids to hear that parents overcome challenges, right? And so definitely have them come in and share that story with your class. And then at the end, you could have the kids ask them questions, or you could make connections and say, I got to tell you, I loved your story because it had this in it, and we do this in our classroom. Kids, do you remember that? Or can you give an example where we've done that in this classroom, kids, and get them involved? So now it becomes a discussion. But this is fun. The parents love it. In fact, I extend it beyond the parents. I've even had bus drivers come in. I've invited the principals come in. I've had local celebrities come in and, like athletes from Michigan State University, or other people that maybe stand out in the community a little bit. But this is for parents right now. So I'd only send it home to parents to start off with at first, maybe to get them to feel like this is special for them. But I definitely think that this is going to be something that, man, just imagine if you're a kid and your mom or dad standing up there in front of your class doing a presentation. And then, you get to kind of have bragging rights. Yeah, my parents came in. So that's good. A win for them. It's a win for them to hear stories that are, again, of real people that have had successes. So it's not just people they think are lucky that they see on TV or they hear on the radio or whatever, And so this is a win-win for you as well, because you get to have different people come in reinforcing what you've been trying to teach. You can say, see, kids, I'm not just feeding you this stuff thinking, it's just going to trick you into behaving this year. No, this is stuff that's going to make you successful. Here's another example right here in our community, right here in so-and-so's home. So this is real stuff. And so it reinforces that. And again, it makes the parents feel like a rock star for maybe, 30, 50 minutes or so, how long they end up staying in your classroom. Most people would never stay over a half an hour, or I'd put a time limit saying, hey, for the next 25 minutes we have, you can take as much of this time as you want, and I'd introduce them and let them have the floor, so they kind of had a heads up. And you can put that in the note that you're going to send home too. But definitely that's a good one. And here's an added thing. Record it. If you can somehow record it, you can save these for kids that were absent, or in future years show these to kids and say, here's some parents we've had in the past that came in and talked about things, so you can see that these things are real things, or people in our school that came in to talk to you about their success stories. So I want you to know you're surrounded by success stories. You're creating success stories you may not even be aware of right now, but here's some examples. but even more importantly, you can send the recording home with the parents for them to have forever of their time when they went into their child's, whatever grade it was. For me, it'd be 5th grade. They came into their child's 5th grade classroom that year and gave a great success story. It's going to be a keepsake the longer you have that, because the older, you get as a parent and they get as young adults and then adults, they're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, mom or dad, look at this is when you came in and talked to my class. This is so cool. And so I would definitely, do that. And then last thing you want to do, nice touch, send a thank you note home. And I should have mentioned that for the last activity when they come in to read to your kids. Send a thank you note home, validating them, letting them know how much that meant to you and what it meant to the kids and how they truly are, a valued member of your team. Again, that bank account of positives is just going up and up and up. The deposits, these are 2 huge deposits in these last 2 activities. All right, I'm going to start to wrap this up. The last one, and I am going to do this quickly because it's a big one, but I didn't share this one first because I think it's pretty obvious, and that is parent volunteers. Parent volunteers, they're gold, but a lot of teachers don't want to have a volunteer come into their classroom and work with them because they're afraid the parent's going to be judgmental. It's that once bit, twice shy thing I'm telling you about. They don't feel welcome, and parents, don't usually volunteer to come in on their own, and so I remember the first time I had a volunteer for years, I never thought of doing it. I was too busy, or I was maybe worried about that judgment thing. I don't know. But I had a parent actually ask me if they could come in and volunteer. And they said, I could come in and do clerical. I could do, make copies for you. I could do whatever you want. And I said, I'd love it. Thank you very much. I was nervous, I'll admit. But this parent came in, was amazing. She came in and she would come in regularly every week for about an hour, one day in the afternoon. And she would do, like I said, clerical work for me. She'd make copies. If I was getting ready for a project, she'd go in the teacher's room and help organize some of the materials I would need. Or she would help do a bulletin board. She would do anything. In fact, sometimes back then, I would let them grade papers. But then over time, I thought, that's nice. It eases up, like if I have them do a spelling test. But then I thought, I don't know, maybe it's not the right thing to do because then they know something about another kid. And I don't want them to go home and say, I saw that Jimmy in Mr. Cecil's room does terrible with his spelling. Well, no wonder. I bet his parents don't work with, and then it's gossipy stuff. And so I didn't want to make people feel like other parents knew what their kids, they could see their kids' work and then judge it and all that. So now I never had a problem with that, but I've heard other schools say they don't do that. They don't let people grade papers. And I get where they're coming from. So that's up to you and your own discretion to decide. But you do maybe want to consider nowadays like a background check, which we didn't have to do back when I was doing it early on when this happened, when I had my first volunteer that came in. But it's a good thing to do now, and a lot of schools will make it mandatory. But I'll tell you one thing you probably should do, and that is something I do. I work at a place called Ellie's Place. It's a grieving place for children to come and heal, to share their grief, and to be together with other kids to talk it out. I volunteer there, and what our rule there is at Ellie's Place is that there's never one adult alone with one child, and so you always have at least 2-3 people together, and so it's one volunteer at least with one or more children or with that. But it works if you want to have people come in maybe and work in the hallway with your kids. And so instead of having them just work one-on-one with the student, you could do that in the back of your room maybe, or if they're in sight, keep the door open and you can see them in the hallway. Just that way you never have to worry about anything happening or anybody accusing you of not paying attention to what's going on. But sometimes I would have them come in and working with kids that were absent and you're trying to get work made up for them. That was a really great way to do it. If a kid sometimes just needed more work on flashcards because, they just didn't have the confidence, you want to help them build their confidence, or work on their spelling words out loud before their Friday spelling test, or to read to you was a big one. I'd sometimes have little groups of kids go out and read from books that they'd want to read, and I'd give every kid's a chance to do it, so it didn't seem like it was just certain kids being labeled as, oh, these are the kids that struggle. They wanted to go out and read with our guest teacher. Hey, our guest teacher's come this week. I'm going to have some readers out there who'd like to go. And I would do it with kids that I knew could read a certain book together, but I would make sure it was enough that everybody felt like they were going out there so it wasn't labeling kids. This was amazing. It got so crazy that this volunteer, she started saying, can I come in a couple times a week? I'm like, yeah, please come in. I can find things for you to do. Pretty soon she was a regular and she never missed. Other teachers were getting jealous of what this volunteer was doing. In fact, at the end of the year, they were like, Bill, you got to put so-and-so in my classroom. The upper the sixth grade teachers were saying, you got to put so-and-so in my room because, we want that kid's mom to come in and be our volunteer because she seems like the best volunteer. She's so nice, and you can tell she's really been in there a lot, and you seem so thrilled to have her. I'm like, I am. And so, so I said, I don't make that choice, but that I knew was a winning thing, and they started to wanting to get volunteers themselves. I started to see more and more volunteers in our building after that, and I thought that might have been from this one volunteer that opened the floodgates for that to happen. But what was nice was that this parent would also go out in the community and talk me up. And I never thought that was the purpose of bringing her in, but it was a nice thing that happened. And people would come in, oh, I've heard so much from you, so-and-so. She talks so highly of how so positive you are. Da-da-da-da. It's just, you know what? That's what happens when you bring people in. You make them a part of your team. They become fans, and winning teams attract fans, and they go out and they promote it. And she was a part of the team, and she wanted to go out and really talk it up because she was a part of the team. In fact, my district hired her, and she became a secretary over in our administrative office and worked there for many, many years after she was in my classroom. So I felt proud that I kind of helped give her start into that. So, but that's a win-win-win situation for sure. So think about volunteers that can come into your room. And I know a lot of you probably already do that, but maybe I've given you some new things you can think to do with them and the benefits of having them come in. But I really never, ever had a problem with any volunteer. And the only problem was sometimes maybe not having, when I had too many people wanting to volunteer, I had to say, you can't come in every week, but I can have you come in every other week because I have to get other people in. And so you have to just more prep time to make it work for everybody, but well worth it, especially getting kids caught up on their homework that were absent. It saved me time and time for them to have to go over things. I could sit them down with a little packet and say, can you kind of go over each of the things on this packet, read the directions with them, ask if they have any questions, and so and so. And they could do that for a number of kids in my classroom. So really cool stuff. All right. Believe it or not, I've been peeling this onion, and I'll tell you, there's more to share. But I'm not going to do that. I promised I would do 2 episodes. It turned into 3, and now it's 4, and I'm not going to do that to you yet. But by the end of this series, I'm gonna find another episode because I have another idea that is going to really help get parents more involved, and a way to even supersize your best year ever by getting parents involved in another activity. But I'm going to wait. Why? Because less is more, and I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want you to overwhelm your parents trying to do too much too fast. So I think I've given you plenty to start off with, and hopefully keep you listening so you'll pay attention down the road to see when's that next layer of that onion going to show up of how this is a really cool thing to do to get your parents involved. I'm really excited about this because I really, looking back, have learned that, man, you know what? Getting your parents involved is a really cool thing. And I truly have great relationships still with many of my parents on Facebook. I'm not a big social media guy, but I do keep in contact with some of those parents, a lot of my students, because it keeps me connected to them, let them know I still care many years later. Like I told them, once you're in my classroom, you're always on my team. I'll always care about you. And it lets them see that I'm not getting paid anything now. It's all from the heart, which it always has been, but it proves it even more. And it's nice to have those connections still. I kid you not. I just got a Christmas card from a family that I've been getting for, I would say now, probably for about the last 30 years. Every year they send me a Christmas card with their family picture, which keeps growing and growing and growing with grandkids and all that now. But it's so nice to be remembered by those people. Why? Because I made them a part of our team when I had their child in my classroom, and I hope you'll have that opportunity as well. So hey, until next time, I hope you'll give some of this some thought. And remember, best year ever. You have the power to make it happen.